The moment Andrew Wilson stumbled upon the receipt, his world tilted. Tucked among a pile of forgotten bills on his desk in their Chicago home, the slip of paper from a downtown jeweler was unassuming until he read it. A men's watch, engraved with "Forever with Love." The words hit like a punch. Andrew, a 45-year-old architect, had never received such a gift from his wife, Emma, in their 20 years together. His stomach knotted as he read it again, her initials staring back at him. This wasn't a mistake. Emma didn't make careless gestures. Every gift she gave carried intent. He sat frozen, the receipt trembling in his hand. The house, already too quiet since their daughter Caitlin left for college, seemed to hum with a new kind of silence, one laced with suspicion. Andrew didn't storm into the kitchen to confront Emma. Instead, he folded the receipt and slipped it into his wallet, his mind racing. Was there an explanation? A surprise he'd never received? But deep down, he knew better. The intimacy of that engraving, "Forever with Love," felt like a promise meant for someone else. Over the next few days, Andrew became a silent observer in his own life. Emma carried on as usual, her routines unchanged to a casual eye. But Andrew noticed the shifts. She lingered longer at work, claiming late meetings. Her phone, once left carelessly on the counter, now stayed glued to her side. One evening, as he passed by the living room, he caught her mid-conversation, her voice low and hurried. When he entered, she hung up abruptly, offering a thin smile and a vague excuse about a coworker. The air between them thickened, charged with unspoken questions. Andrew didn't ask. He didn't want to hear a lie, or worse, the truth. Instead, he started piecing things together. He recalled a night the previous week when Emma had mentioned a work dinner, but returned home with a faint scent of unfamiliar cologne. He'd brushed it off then, chalking it up to exhaustion. Now it gnawed at him. He checked her calendar, usually an open book, and found gaps. Hours marked only as busy, with no details. Each discovery fueled his unease, but he refused to leap to conclusions. He needed more. One morning, while Emma showered, Andrew glanced at her phone left on the nightstand. A notification flashed, a text from an unsaved number. Looking forward to tonight. His pulse spiked. He didn't unlock the phone. He wasn't ready to cross that line, but the message lingered like a splinter in his mind. That evening, Emma announced she was heading to a team happy hour. She left with a quick kiss, her eyes avoiding his. Andrew stood at the window, watching her car pull away, the taillights fading into the Chicago dusk. He didn't sleep that night. Sitting alone in the dark, he replayed every moment of their marriage. The laughter, the fights, the quiet promises. Had they been eroding all along? The receipt, still in his wallet, felt heavier now, a tangible clue to a betrayal he wasn't ready to name. But Andrew wasn't the type to rage or accuse without proof. He decided to watch, to wait, to let the truth reveal itself. Whatever Emma was hiding, he'd uncover it. Not with confrontation, but with patience. The game had begun, and he was already one step behind. Emma's car hadn't even rounded the corner when Andrew made up his mind. He wasn't going to trail her through Chicago's crowded streets or hire some seedy private eye. No, he'd outsmart her. The receipt for the engraved watch, "Forever with Love," still burned in his wallet, a silent accusation. If Emma was hiding something, Andrew would unravel it his way, piece by piece, without tipping his hand. The game was on, and he was done being the oblivious husband. The next morning, Emma left for work with her usual brisk goodbye, but Andrew caught the flicker of her eyes, guarded, almost calculating. He waited until her car disappeared, then pulled up their shared bank account on his laptop. A quick scan revealed nothing blatant, but a small charge from a restaurant he didn't recognize caught his eye. It was dated the night of her last team happy hour. He cross-checked the location, a trendy spot downtown, not the kind of place her coworkers frequented. His jaw tightened. She'd never mentioned it. Andrew's days became a quiet hunt for answers. He didn't confront her, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he watched. Emma's phone, once left unlocked, now demanded passcode. She started taking calls in the garage, her voice muffled but urgent. One evening, as he pretended to read, he overheard her whisper, "I can't talk now." Later, the call ended the moment he shifted in his chair. Her excuse, a client needing urgent feedback, felt flimsy, but he nodded, playing along. The clues piled up. A late-night email notification on her laptop, left open by mistake, revealed a reservation confirmation for a weekend getaway. The destination was a boutique hotel in Milwaukee, booked for two. Andrew's pulse raced, but he kept his cool. He casually asked about her weekend plans, and Emma mentioned a work conference. The lie was smooth, practiced. He didn't push. Instead, he noted the dates and checked her work calendar later. No conference was listed. His suspicions hardened into certainty, but Andrew needed more than hunches. He started cross-referencing her stories. A late meeting coincided with a parking ticket from a neighborhood nowhere near her office. A girls' night left no trace on her social media, unlike her usual posts. Each discrepancy was a thread in the web of her deception, and Andrew was weaving it together with cold precision. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was methodical, biding his time. One night, Emma came home later than usual, her keys jingling as she slipped through the door. Andrew was waiting, not an accusation, but an observation. "Rough day?" he asked, his tone neutral. She nodded, mentioning a project deadline, but her eyes darted away. He noticed a faint smudge of lipstick on her collar. Not her shade. It was a careless slip, and Andrew filed it away. That night, lying awake beside her, he felt the distance between them grow, a chasm he could no longer ignore. The breaking point came unexpectedly. While sorting laundry, Andrew found a business card tucked in her jacket pocket. It belonged to a man named Richard, a consultant with a sleek office address downtown. The card was worn, as if handled often. On the back, in Emma's handwriting, was a date and time. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Andrew's chest tightened, but he didn't crumble. He slipped the card back, his mind racing with plans. He wouldn't follow her to the meeting. He'd do something smarter. The next evening, as Emma left for another work event, Andrew sat at his desk, the receipt and business card side by side. He wasn't ready to confront her, not because he feared the truth, but because he wanted to control the outcome. He opened his laptop and searched for job listings in Seattle, a city far enough to start fresh but close enough for Caitlin. A new opportunity, an architectural firm needing his expertise, felt like a lifeline. He applied, his fingers steady on the keys. If Emma was building a life without him, he'd build one without her. That Andrew's decision to leave Chicago wasn't an escape. It was a declaration. The job offer from Seattle landed in his inbox like a lifeline, promising a fresh start far from the lies that had begun to suffocate him. The receipt for the engraved watch, "Forever with Love, E." still sat in his wallet, a jagged reminder of Emma's betrayal. But now, with a plane ticket booked and a new life waiting, Andrew felt the scales tipping in his favor. He wasn't running. He was rewriting the rules. The weeks before his move were a tightrope walk. Emma sensed a shift in him, her usual confidence faltering. She asked vague questions about his late-night work sessions, her tone probing but cautious. Andrew kept his answers short, revealing nothing. He'd already started packing, discreetly boxing up books and files while Emma was at her meetings. One night, she came home earlier than expected, catching him taping a carton shut. "What's this?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Just decluttering," he said, meeting her gaze. Her eyes lingered, but she didn't press. The air crackled with unspoken truths. Andrew's quiet investigation hadn't stopped. He'd found more. An email receipt for a wine delivery to an address he didn't recognize, sent from Emma's account. A quick search tied it to Richard's consulting firm. Then, a co-worker's offhand comment about Emma's new friend at a company event sealed it. Richard wasn't just a name on a business card. He was the man behind the watch. Andrew's stomach churned, but he channeled the hurt into focus. He wasn't gathering evidence for a fight. He was building a case for his freedom. The divorce conversation was clinical, almost surgical. Andrew sat Emma down one evening, papers already prepared. "I'm moving to Seattle," he said, his voice steady. "We're done." Emma's face froze, her usual poise cracking. She stammered, asking why, but Andrew didn't mention the watch or Richard. He didn't need to. Her silence said enough. She signed the papers with trembling hands, offering no defense, no tears, just a hollow agreement. The lack of fight stung more than any argument could have. Seattle welcomed Andrew with gray skies and a clean slate. His new apartment was bare, but he didn't mind. The distance from Chicago felt like a shield. He threw himself into work, designing buildings that felt more solid than his old life. But the past wasn't done with him. A week after settling in, A delivery truck arrived with boxes Emma had left behind in their old garage. Most were junk, old receipts, forgotten gadgets, but one caught his eye, a small black velvet box buried under papers. His hand shook as he opened it. There was the watch. Polished steel, heavy in his palm, with "Forever with Love, E" etched on the back. Next to it, a crumpled photo of Emma laughing in the arms of a man. Richard, unmistakably. A keychain with RC engraved sat beside it, a careless relic of her secret. Andrew's breath caught, not from shock, but from the weight of confirmation. The truth was no longer a suspicion. It was real, tangible, staring back at him. He didn't smash the watch or burn the photo. Instead, he set them aside, the watch in his pocket, the rest in a drawer. They weren't trophies. They were proof of what he'd survived. That night, he called Caitlin, needing her voice to anchor him. She was thrilled about her classes, her new friends, but sensed his quiet mood. "You okay, Dad?" she asked. He lied, saying it was just the move. He wasn't ready to burden her with the truth. Not yet. But Caitlin's next call changed everything. Her voice was tight, angry. Emma had suggested inviting Richard to a family dinner for her upcoming campus visit. "She called him important to us," Caitlin said, her words dripping with disbelief. "I told her no way. You're my dad." Andrew's heart swelled, but the sting of Emma's audacity cut deep. She wasn't just hiding an affair. She was trying to rewrite their family. He calmed Caitlin, promising to be there for her visit, but inside his resolve hardened. The watch in his pocket felt heavier, not with pain, but with purpose. He'd carry it, not as a wound, but as a badge of what he'd overcome, and what he'd never let define him. Caitlin's voice cracked through the phone, her words slicing through Andrew's calm like a blade. "Mom wants Richard to walk me down the aisle," she said, her tone a mix of fury and disbelief. Andrew froze, the watch, engraved "Forever with Love, E," still tucked in his Seattle apartment drawer, pulsing like a second heartbeat. Emma's audacity wasn't just a betrayal. It was an attempt to erase him from his daughter's life. But Caitlin's next words lit a fire in him. "I told her it's you or no one." The battle lines were drawn, and Andrew was ready to fight. Not with anger, but with unyielding resolve. Caitlin's engagement had brought a rare lightness to Andrew's new life in Seattle. Her calls, filled with excitement about wedding plans, were a lifeline to the family he still cherished. But Emma's suggestion, dropped casually during a planning call, shattered that joy. Caitlin recounted how Emma framed it. Richard, her partner, deserved a role in the ceremony, a way to unite the family. Caitlin's response was swift and fierce. She threatened to bar Emma from the wedding entirely if she pushed the idea further. Andrew listened, his chest tight but swelling with pride. His daughter wasn't just rejecting Emma's plan. She was defending their bond. Emma didn't back down easily. Caitlin described a tense follow-up call where Emma doubled down, claiming Richard's presence would modernize the event. Caitlin cut her off, her voice shaking but firm. "Dad raised me. Dad walks me. End of story." Emma retreated, her silence a grudging surrender, but Andrew knew she'd try to save face at the wedding. He reassured Caitlin, promising to be there, his voice steady despite the storm inside. After hanging up, he pulled the watch from the drawer, its cold metal grounding him. It wasn't just a relic of Emma's affair. It was a symbol of what he'd protect at all costs. The weeks leading to the wedding were a blur of logistics and quiet preparation. Andrew coordinated with Caitlin's planner, ensuring his role was locked in. He didn't trust Emma to stay quiet. A cryptic email from her, asking to discuss family roles at the venue, set him on edge. He replied curtly, redirecting her to Caitlin. The message went unanswered, but Andrew sensed Emma plotting, perhaps to insert Richard into the day's narrative. He wouldn't let her. He booked a flight to Chicago, his mind sharp with purpose. A final call from Caitlin brought another twist. Emma had invited Richard to the rehearsal dinner, passing it off as a +1 decision. Caitlin, furious, confronted her mother, demanding Richard stay away from key moments. Emma agreed, but her tone was evasive, hinting at lingering defiance. Andrew advised Caitlin to hold her ground, reminding her the day was hers. "I've got your back," he said, meaning every word. The watch, now a constant in his pocket, felt like a talisman, a reminder of the stakes. As the wedding approached, Andrew's resolve sharpened. He didn't confront Emma directly. There was no need. Caitlin's loyalty was his shield, and his presence at the ceremony would be his answer. But a chance discovery added fuel to the fire. While reviewing old bank statements for the divorce settlement, Andrew found a charge for a couple's spa day, booked under Emma's name, but paid from a joint account, dated after their separation. The receipt listed Richard's name as the second guest. The betrayal wasn't new, but its boldness stung. Andrew saved the evidence, not for revenge, but to remind himself why he'd left. The night before his flight, Andrew sat alone, the watch in his hand. He traced the engraving, no longer wincing at its words. Emma's attempt to replace him in Caitlin's life was her final misstep. He wouldn't stoop to her level. No scenes, no accusations. His victory would be in showing up, standing tall beside his daughter, and letting Emma face the consequences of her choices. The watch, once a wound, was now his armor. He packed it with his suit, ready to wear it on the day that would redefine their family, on his terms. Andrew stepped off the plane in Chicago, the watch, forever with love strapped to his wrist like a quiet vow. Today was Caitlin's wedding, and he was here to claim his place, not just as her father, but as the man who'd risen above Emma's betrayal. The weight of the past year, receipts, lies, Richard's shadow, pressed against him, but Andrew stood taller. Emma could scheme all she wanted. This day belonged to him and his daughter. The final move was his. The morning of the wedding buzzed with controlled chaos. Andrew arrived at the venue early, coordinating with Caitlin's planner to ensure every detail was set. Caitlin's call last night had been a warning. Emma was still pushing for Richard to join the family table at the reception. Caitlin had shut it down, but Andrew sensed Emma wouldn't let go easily. He scanned the arriving guests, spotting Emma across the lot, her posture stiff as she spoke to a man he recognized from the photo, Richard. Andrew's grip tightened on the watch, but he kept his focus. No distractions today. Caitlin greeted him with a fierce hug, her voice steady but emotional. "You're here. That's all I need." Andrew nodded, his throat tight. They didn't mention Emma, but the unspoken agreement hung between them. This was their moment. As the ceremony neared, Andrew caught Emma's glance from a distance. Her eyes flickered to his wrist, where the watch glinted under the sunlight. She froze, her expression a mix of recognition and dread, but turned away quickly, busying herself with guests. Andrew didn't react. Her discomfort was enough. The ceremony began, and Andrew took Caitlin's arm, leading her down the aisle. Each step felt deliberate, a quiet defiance of Emma's attempts to rewrite their family. Caitlin's grip was firm, her smile radiant. The crowd faded. It was just them, father and daughter, reclaiming their bond. At the altar, Andrew stepped back, his role fulfilled, but the watch on his wrist felt lighter, its engraving no longer a wound but a badge of his strength. He sat among the guests, his eyes on Caitlin, pride drowning out the past. Emma's presence lingered like a shadow. At the reception, she mingled, her laughter forced as she steered clear of Andrew. Richard hovered nearby, but Caitlin's firm boundaries kept him at the edges. No speeches, no dances, no spotlight. Andrew noticed Emma's glances at his wrist, each one a silent acknowledgement of her exposed secret. He didn't flaunt the watch, but he didn't hide it either. When a guest complimented it, Andrew smiled faintly and said, "A keepsake." Emma, within earshot, stiffened but said nothing. A final test came during the toasts. Emma approached the microphone, her voice steady as she spoke about Caitlin's journey. Then, a subtle pivot. She mentioned new beginnings and gestured vaguely toward Richard. The room didn't notice, but Andrew did. Caitlin's eyes met his, a flash of irritation passing between them. Before Emma could continue, Caitlin stood, cutting in with her own toast. "To my dad," she said, raising her glass, "who's always been my rock." The crowd cheered, and Emma sat down, her face tight. Andrew raised his glass, the watch catching the light, a silent checkmate. As the night wound down, Emma approached Andrew near the exit, her steps hesitant. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice low. Andrew looked at her, the woman he'd once loved, now a stranger carrying the weight of her choices. "There's nothing to say," he replied, his tone calm but final. He walked away, leaving her standing alone. The watch ticked softly, a reminder of the life he'd rebuilt. Outside, the Chicago night was cool, the air clean. Andrew breathed deeply, free. The next morning, Andrew boarded his flight back to Seattle. Caitlin's wedding photos arrived in his inbox, capturing her joy and his quiet strength. One image showed his wrist, the watch gleaming subtly. He saved it, not for pain, but for closure. Emma's betrayal had lost its power. Caitlin's love and his own resilience had won. The watch stayed on, not as a scar, but as a testament to a man who'd chosen dignity over despair and a father who'd never let go.